Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're coming at you with this week in cannabis investing news from February 7th to the 13th. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. And of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos, and there's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the industry, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and take advantage whenever you're ready. We're going to start with this little snippet and bit of news from Tom Engel reporting for Marijuana Moment, as Rep. Ed Perlmutter out of Colorado says he's confident his cannabis banking legislation is finally going to make it through the Senate and onto the president's desk before he leaves office at the end of the year. And while we love to hear this from Ed, especially seeing this smile as he does look irate as if he's gotten some news that he's spoken to Schumer and gotten some confirmation that SAFE will become a priority, we love to hear this, but obviously we just have to plan accordingly and prepare for what is to come. But I do want to add that this is on top of what Schumer has previously announced, and Bloomberg Law covers it again. Pot legalization boosted as Schumer makes issue a top priority. And while I did cover this last week, just to reiterate that Majority Leader says he'll unveil a new pot measure in April, and the plan faces opposition from senators in both parties because obviously his bill, CAOA, is not a good bill. The taxes are too high, it demands too much, and it's never going to get any votes from any Republicans. So the best case scenario we can hope for is that he's going to use all the pieces that they have, which include the States Reform Act, the HOPE Act, the Safe Banking Act, the MORE Act, all of this, and try to come together with something that they can get done, which will likely include SAFE plus clemency or record expungements, which would be ideal. And so on top of this, from Marijuana Moment, they had that Schumer asked senators to help shape cannabis legalization bill he plans to file soon. And while we strongly dislike to see Schumer continue to mislead us with the word soon, it is good to see at least he's engaging with other members of Congress. The Senate leaders are asking fellow lawmakers to weigh in on the provisions of a bill to federally legalize cannabis that they plan to file in the coming weeks that aims to right the wrongs of the past and ensure that the federal government is matching the advancements made in states across the country. And so him, Booker, and Wyden sent a letter to the Senate. As more and more states legalize cannabis, the Senate's long overdue in addressing the issue and righting the wrongs of the past. Multiple issues, not like there's just one. But with your help, we plan to introduce comprehensive cannabis legalization soon. And while this is funny, they are asking a Congress that really does not seem to care about this issue much, obviously because they're paid by, a majority of them, at least paid by their donors of Big Pharma, not to whatsoever. It's also ironic that he's now asking for feedback on the feedback instead of really just doing his job, filing the bill, and moving from there. So it's still same old Schumer, just promising us soon, but at least we can anticipate something in April. That's obviously going to be dead on arrival, and then they can work with what they've got from there. So on to some other news. This comes from Benzinga. Is cannabis market expected to hit $198 billion by 2028? So you notice as the momentum picks up, we see a lot more of these articles with some outlandish projections. The industry boasts a 32% compounded annual growth rate. So according to a report published by Fortune Business Insights, the global cannabis market size stood at USD 20.4 billion in 2020, with the majority of those sales, I think 2020 was 17.5 billion in the US, and then 2021 was 24. But rising awareness regarding cannabis's therapeutic and medical benefits, enabling policies and relaxation regulations are likely to foster market development. The cannabis market share is expected to grow from 28.2 billion in 2021 to 197.4 billion by 2028. I should add, if all goes to plan and all states legalize as soon as possible, plus European countries, that's probably what they're leaving out here, exhibiting compounded annual growth rate of 32% during the forecasted period. So just want to add this down here. You can grab the link if you wanted to read more, but just keep in mind, while this could be outlandish, it certainly is notable because cannabis is going to get very big, especially when laws do change, but obviously it's just projections can be misleading, so just take that with a grain of salt. While we move on to this one from Market Watch, it takes me off my original IP, so I got a new incognito browser to pull this up. Cannabis sales set to rise ahead of Super Bowl Sunday. So if 2022 follows trends from last year, cannabis sales will rise significantly ahead of this year's matchup between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Los Angeles Rams. Sales of cannabis jumped 33% over daily February sales on the Friday before the Super Bowl in 2021. So what they're saying is yesterday, the Friday before the game, we'd see a big increase in spending, up 33%, and increased by 22% on the day before kickoff, representing today, Saturday, according to New York-based marketing technology company Surfside Solutions, Inc. However, of course, with cannabis users settled down in front of their screens on game day, cannabis sales dropped 28% than the average total day on Super Bowl Sunday. So the sales total for the day also amounts to the worst Sunday in all of February and March, because obviously people are going to be in and watching the game. And so on to this next story from Marijuana Moment, though, as we check out some state sales. Colorado set a cannabis sales sales record in 2021, state officials report from Marijuana Moment. So glad to report that Colorado broke another cannabis sales record in 2021, with state officials reporting over $2.22 billion in cannabis purchases last year. The new figures released on Thursday by the Colorado Department of Revenue also showed that the state took in $423.4 million in tax revenue from medical and adult use cannabis sales in 2021. While the prior sales record occurred in 2020 when Colorado saw about $2.19 billion in cannabis purchases. Since the retail market launched in 2014, and this is again the blueprint, most states can follow this if they do it right, cannabis sales have exceeded $12 billion. As of January, tax revenue from those sales has reached over $2 billion, and this is a state with just a population of 5.7 million. Mind you, there's a lot of travel and a lot of travelers that do seek out Colorado. Nonetheless, great to see the first state to do it, and this is the blueprint for all others to follow. On to this one from New Cannabis Ventures, as apparently plunging prices for overall cannabis in Michigan helped push cannabis sales down 9% in January, which was to be expected following a record-setting December for adult use sales. Michigan cannabis sales in total decreased 9% to $152.6 million in January, up 41% from a year ago, as the Michigan Cannabis Regulatory Agency breaks out sales of medical and adult use, with medical sales falling 32% from a year ago to $28 million, down 15% sequentially, and adult use sales increasing 85% to 124.6, down 8% sequentially. So this is another way of looking at it, the blue representing medical and the brown representing the adult use recreation. If we scroll down, we can see the breakdown if you wanted to check that out. But one thing worth noting is that in a very competitive unlimited license state, they are seeing the cost of flower go down in general. And as supply continues to expand, flower pricing for adult use has seen a dramatic decline. In January, the average price of $2,443 per pound plunged 17% from December and fell 53% from a year ago. So obviously, if the cost of a pound is half of what it was a year ago, it's going to be more difficult to continue setting record months. However, it does make it easier for consumers in the state to spend more because it doesn't cost as much. And so over time, we're just going to have to keep an eye on this and see how this plays out. And that is the beauty of all the different states being the experiment of democracy. But nonetheless, worth noting that Michigan cannabis sales expanded 82% in 2021 overall to $1.79 billion, up from $985 million in 2020. So the program should continue to expand ahead as supply becomes more available and as distribution expands. Well, CNBC did highlight this, so I wanted to share it, as cannabis ETFs have made a double-digit comeback in recent weeks. And so what are managers saying to that? Basically, just wanted to relay that this is true, and the catalysts for cannabis stocks are adding up according to several exchange-traded fund managers, or mainly the momentum is building as the stage is set for this year. And so just to go through it, cannabis ETFs have bounced in recent weeks, with most of the major funds making double-digit comebacks since January 31st. As MSOs is up over 22%, MJ is up nearly 14%, YOLO is up about 16.5%, POTUS is up more than 21%, CNBS is up over 20%, and THCX is up over 14%. As Canadian producer, Canopy Growth's earnings report boosted the whole group on Wednesday, and I'm not exactly sure why, but I will take it, with even US-based cannabis ETFs that don't hold the stock rising sharply on the heels of the results. And that is probably because people noticed of how damaged the Canadian LPs are. The best place to go for growth is especially the US. As Advisor Shares Dan Aaron's adds, the smart money is more focused on the US cannabis stocks. And that is why MSOs is the best ETF if you're looking for as much exposure to the US MSOs as possible. And with that, just to jump over to Junglejava, as she heard a rumor that investing in Can1, who is Dan Aaron's the portfolio manager, has a shopping addiction, but that Advisor Shares MSOs ETF does not mind. And here are the changes made during his latest shopping spree on February 11th, 2022, ending Friday with a cash position of $44.2 million, down slightly from the end of day Thursday where they had $52.4 million. But this certainly beats the less than $1 million they had in cash a couple weeks ago. So sounds like we are trending upwards. I wanted to bring this one from Tom Angle as he reports big federally owned power company Tennessee Valley Authority has just walked back its threat to withhold electricity from cannabis businesses following pushback from, you guessed it, Congress and local officials. And so while this is interesting, I touched a little bit on this just based on the feedback given from individuals like Chris Norman, someone on Twitter who wrote to Nancy Pelosi expressing his support for passing SAFE. And this is sort of, again, just another example of the abuse of power that we're seeing from certain organizations in specific states where they think that they can continue to bully anyone in the cannabis industry and maintain the double standard. So this is a big deal. I'm not going to go through the whole story, but if you heard of it or followed it, you can grab the link below to check out the link. But nonetheless, this is just huge again to highlight that this company, Tennessee Valley Authority, has been forced to walk back its threat to withhold electricity from cannabis businesses. If you can imagine that, they wanted to withhold electricity maybe from medical cannabis businesses in Tennessee, but because of pushback from Congress and local officials, which this never happens usually. They've had to walk this back. So I would consider this a very big victory, nonetheless a small one, but one that can hopefully gain more attention. And I just call on you to please continue reaching out to Nancy Pelosi and supporting the Safe Banking Act, because I saw this tweet from Scott Atkison and I wanted to share it. Hey MSO gang, would love some help spreading the word on what is happening in Washington state. Armed robberies of retail stores is getting out of control, with 40 in the last 30 days and 7 in the last 2 days, with increasingly violent attacks as well. And there's actually a document spreadsheet that I wanted to pull up to show you, because this is almost heartbreaking. But Uncle Ike's I-502 robbery tracker, and so from 2017, starting at 4, up until end of 2021, they had almost a total of 100 robberies. And then from the start of 2022, which would be 106 in the column and chart, all the way till now, man, there's been almost 48 or 49 robberies in the last 2 months. And so this is in Washington state alone. I could not imagine trying to operate a dispensary in this environment, but this goes to show how real this is. Armed robbery in the city, the retail dispensary, and it's unbelievable. So if you're American, please express your support. Write to Nancy Pelosi, write to Chuck Schumer, Booker, Wyden, and express as much support as you can to, well, I didn't mean to exit that, but to pass the Safe Banking Act. This link and the one below will be in the description if you want to grab it, but just when you see this with your own eyes at the scale of how this is happening, you could not want to operate a small business in this industry under this current environment, and that is why SAFE is good policy and why it's so important to have that pass sooner than later. And so, especially if SAFE had been made a priority sooner and passed by the end of 2021, you could easily argue that all of these robberies in 2022 could have been prevented, as there'd be no cash on the streets for the armed robbers to go after. And so at this point, the only person you can really lay the blame on is Chuck Schumer and his inaction. And so on to individual states, with the Office of Medical Cannabis Use highlighting this past week from February 4th to the 11th, as Liberty Health Sciences opened a new location in Tampa, Sanctuary Medicinals opened a new dispensary in Dunedin, Soterra opened one in Cresco, and Trulieve opened a new location in Riverview. As Florida's qualified patient count increased to 678,389, representing an increase of 2,432 patients from last week. And so while that's not as big of a jump as we saw the week before, which added 5,000 patients, still good to see that going up nonetheless. Well, if we look at the sales from February 4th to the 10th, we can look at the number of milligrams of THC sold, number of milligrams of CBD sold, and ounces of smokable flower sold for all of the MSOs operating in Florida. And so while Trulieve certainly dominates with the most market share, it is quite clear that Liberty Health Sciences, Curaleaf, AltMed, and Soterra are battling for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th place. And so while these numbers continue to fluctuate, it's just good to see the competition is remaining high in Florida, and good to see strong sales across the board. As this one comes from Cantech, basically highlighting why Columbia Care is their top pick, says Echelon. So I'm not going to go through this, but just wanted to share this because if you're interested in Columbia Care, this was one of the articles I found on an MSO, so you can grab the link below if you want to read it. Keep in mind, it's not advice, it's just one article highlighting an opinion from Echelon, but certainly some more information that you can compare with what you already know if you were interested in investing in Columbia Care. While Cresco Labs announced a social justice documentary to premiere at Santa Barbara International Film Festival and South by Southwest. So I think it's pretty cool to see that a cannabis MSO, or especially a US MSO, has actually branched into the film industry and gotten a film approved for some international film festivals in South by Southwest, which is a pretty popular one. So, and this highlights the story of Michael Thompson. And so for a bit more detail, the subject of the film, Michael Thompson, is the longest-serving nonviolent offender in Michigan history. In 1994, he was arrested for selling 3 pounds of cannabis to a close friend turned police informant. So sad. And he was sentenced to 42 to 60 years and remained in prison after Michigan legalized the recreational use and sale of cannabis. Which is truly unbelievable, especially in this day and age where some states have legalized and others haven't. But thank God he was granted clemency last year and was released. So thank you, Cresco Labs, for using your platform and your resources to put your money where your mouth is and actually spread the awareness and tell the story so that you can have a greater impact, because at the end of the day, I do think education and awareness is key. The more people we can get to understand and actually care about descheduling this plant and getting, records expunged and clemency, the better, and the sooner we can get to normalizing this plant. And so on to some tweets. This one from MJStockTrader. As per Governor Murphy, and this just to reiterate from what I've shared in the past weeks, New Jersey rec sales should start in weeks and not months, which is news to us, so hopefully this is true. The next regulatory meetings are February 24th and March 24th. So you can grab the link if you want to learn more about New Jersey here, but just a snippet from it. Governor Phil Murphy addressed recreational cannabis sales during Up Close with Bill Ritter. I think we're within a number of weeks and not months where you'll see medical dispensaries get the ability to sell adult use recreational, as long as they can convince the commission that they won't abandon their patients, Murphy said. But keep in mind, this comes from Governor Murphy and not from the CRC, the Cannabis Regulatory Commission, who's responsible for actually launching this. So hopefully they are in talks and communicating with each other and on the same page, but we're going to have to wait a few weeks to find out if they actually are. But it's good that we're at least hearing this because this makes us hopeful that they are going to start sooner than later. Then just wanted to share this from Henrik Zeberg, who is a macroeconomist with a decently large following of 55,000, but he makes the bullish claim that major bull market in cannabis has begun. And while I don't want to make this claim, I just wanted to share this because if a man with experience is willing to make this claim, especially based on the momentum that we've seen building over the past few weeks, and the fact we've thankfully seen a lot more green than red, hopefully this is true. And on top of that, it's nice to add, so thank you Denis Rudev for sharing this research of yours that looks like shorts are starting to realize the risk of being short cannabis and pot stocks. And so been declining for 2 weeks in a row, hence likely why we've seen a bit of green, and hence Henrik is bullish enough to make this claim. But it's good to see that share interest is actually declining in the US MSOs. But more notably, you can see the number of shares, still a significant number of short shares in certain companies like Canopy Growth, Canadian LP, and for example, just another one with 6 million out shares compared to 15 million. Aurora Cannabis is shorted 6 million shares. So mainly the ones that are heavily shorted are at least the Canadian LPs, which obviously are not as fundamentally strong as the US MSOs. So just going to share these ones from Denis Rudev as well. And these come from Needham, but he shares New Jersey estimated cannabis revenue through 2026. So you can take a look here, pause to read, and go through the chart. New Jersey estimated revenue through 2026. We expect New Jersey to grow from a $325 million market in 2021 to a $2.4 billion in 2026. Adult use in blue and medical in red. And so this is for New Jersey. And you can grab that link below if you want, but this one also comes from Denis for Illinois. Illinois estimated cannabis revenue through 2026. This one is from Needham as well. We expect Illinois to grow from 1.8 billion market in 2021 to a 3 billion plus in 2026. And obviously, yes, the blue highlighting adult use sales and the red highlighting medical. And so lastly, just wanted to share this one from the Vegetarian as he made some adjustments. Please comment with any issues. But if you're looking for any MSOs that have a footprint in Illinois, for example, or New Jersey, as it's a state that is going to come online fairly soon, this is a great chart that highlights all of the MSOs in the US and where they have US dispensaries. And so the number of states they have stores in and the number of stores they have in those states. And it's broken down with states in the West, states in the Midwest, states in the South, states in the Northeast. So this is a great resource you can pull. The link will be below, or you can just pause to read through it, and this will give you an idea of any MSOs that have the footprint in these newly launched adult use states, or in even newer ones that haven't even launched yet, like New Jersey and New York, so you can anticipate which companies you want to invest in, especially for the growth that we're going to see in 2023 when all those get launched and we start to see momentum pick up. So a few more stories from Marijuana Moment. As South Carolina Senate approves medical cannabis bill on initial vote after weeks of debate. So this is good news, at least I'm happy to provide an update, as South Carolina's Senate gave preliminary approval to a medical cannabis legalization bill on Wednesday. If the legislation clears a forthcoming third reading vote for final passage, which is expected on Thursday, it will formally proceed to the House of Representatives. So I'll keep us updated, but it would be nice to see a medical cannabis victory out of South Carolina, as senators who spent weeks debating the legislation and considering dozens of proposed amendments voted 28 to 15 on the second reading passage Wednesday evening. And so while this is good news, I did find something that was interesting and worth pointing out, as senators spent most of Tuesday and Wednesday's floor sessions discussing dozens of amendments to the legislation, taking action on some while tabling or carrying over others. Well, according to this, Davis successfully urged rejection of some of the more hostile proposals, though he embraced other restrictions in the name of getting the bill passed. But get this, under one amendment approved Tuesday with the sponsor's support, for example, the medical cannabis law would sunset entirely at the end of 2028. And when I googled what does sunset mean in politics, it means the law would cease to exist or become void. Why would you want that? So you can start a second opioid epidemic at the end of the decade? It makes no sense. And they go on to say lawmakers would have to take affirmative action, nice choice of wording there, for the program to continue into the next year. And they'd probably notice the success of legalizing and the jobs it provides and the tax revenue. So then, yeah, lawmakers would want to continue what they have going on. But is this not a prime example of possibly incompetent lawmakers planning to fail as opposed to failing to plan accordingly and ensuring that they don't start a second opioid epidemic at the end of the decade? It's ridiculous. Anyways, just wanted to add this because while it's good news that they might be getting a medical cannabis program, there's some trickery that goes on in the end here that you got to keep an eye out for. But I will certainly update on South Carolina as we get more news. Well, this one comes from the Times Union out of New York. Q&A, the New York Cannabis Czar's new vision, as state agency leader Chris Alexander is remaking the drug's role and reputation. Well, we love to see that those hired to normalize the cannabis plant in newly legal states are doing their job, because some are more incompetent than others. New Jersey. What we do really want is a timeline. And so while we don't have one straight out of New York, I just wanted to share this, as the chairwoman projected mid-2023 as a potential for dispensaries to open. Does that feel like a best guess? Answer from the new Cannabis Czar: it might be sooner than what she said. I'm going to push for sooner. People may look at what we've done so far. If it isn't clear, what I was trying to do is knock out low-hanging fruit so we can focus our attention on building out an adult use program. We expanded medical immediately. We finalized a hemp program so that we can focus on a program that needed a bit more work. So hopefully this does mean we would see a sooner launch date than mid-2023, but that's all we've got out of New York. So just wanted to provide that update. So on to some studies. This one from Science Direct. As direct democracy and the adoption of recreational cannabis legalization in the U.S., a study from 2012 to 2019. Just a bit of info on it. The background: over the past decade, a number of American states have legalized cannabis for recreational use. There are various state-level factors that impact policy adoption, and this study investigates whether and how these factors have contributed to higher likelihoods of adopting recreational cannabis legalization. And so the results: net of political and economic context, amenable context for cannabis, and diffusion, states with higher levels of direct democracy, where voters can more easily initiate policy change by way of initiatives and referenda, and where the state legislatures are limited in their capacity to alter voter initiatives, and so where the state has less power to object between what the voters actually get done. So for example, South Dakota, basically the governor saying that while you voted to legalize cannabis on the ballot, I'm just going to say that no, I know what's best for the citizens of South Dakota and you guys don't. So I'd say that's an example of that. Therefore, states with higher levels of direct democracy, where this sort of shenanigans doesn't take place, obviously exhibited higher probabilities of legalizing cannabis for recreational use. And a prime example is Arizona, where they put cannabis legalization on the ballot in November of 2020. Voters overwhelmingly said yes. By January 21st, 2021, they launched their adult use program, and they're already reaping the benefits, highlighting that some states are a lot more democratic than others. While this study comes from Forbes' Sex and Weed survey shows cannabis consumers have more sex than non-consumers and prefer cannabis for V-Day. And so if we just look at the details, mo weed, mo sex. The Sex and Weed survey was conducted online among 1,967 adults aged 21 or more in the U.S., and out of them, 763 declared consuming cannabis with significant THC levels. Interestingly, 50% of sexually active adults who consume cannabis disclose having sex several times each week. This compares to a 35% rate for non-consumers, while furthermore, 65% of sexually active cannabis consumers agree that cannabis enhances their sex life, while 67% say that it helps get them in the mood for sex, and more than half see the plant as a natural aphrodisiac. This is especially true for cannabis users aged 35 and 44. So love to see this interesting data, as it seems like those who consume cannabis have a bit more fun. And so lastly, just wanted to share this from Adweek, as WeedMaps, whose Super Bowl ad was rejected, uses Brock Ollie to call out lingering stigmas. And the double standard remains, because although the NFL will put the news out that they're going to fund a bit of cannabis research to make them look good, although it's just a measly $1 million, and they could obviously fund a lot more, which would go to help their players maintain their ability to keep playing so that they can make the NFL more money, it's just ridiculous that they will not allow a cannabis-friendly ad to help the normalization process. But I will, and I thought it was a good commercial from WeedMaps, so I wanted to share with you on my platform. So, enjoy.
I'm an icon. But since we can't talk about cannabis publicly, my likeness is being used as a safe substitute.
Well, Bron?
Hi.
Oh, hi, indeed.
I don't see the resemblance.
Yeah, that's the only reason I got it. Oh, hey, where you headed? On a break?
Find this meeting, Janet.
Okay, bud. Go get that green.
They're not even being subtle anymore.
Wow. Don't do this to me.
Oh, there you are.
Hey, Susan.
Let's hotbox this.
It's taking over my life. Cannabis is here to stay. That's great. But can we just call it what it is? I'm broccoli. I mean, you guys get it. Pop, leaf.
It's messed up.
Thank you.
Yeah. And while the double standard is still alive, it's not nearly as strong as it used to be, thanks to the great American state-led growth story that is happening on the ground across America right now and will continue to happen over the coming decade. And so if top-heavy organizations like the NFL want to remain oblivious, let them do so, because if they're not paying attention, the reality is that a lot of momentum is building, and there's a very good chance we're going to see some sort of legislation pass this year. So plan accordingly, do what you got to do. But if Perlmutter says he's confident with that smile that his cannabis banking legislation is finally going to make it through the Senate and onto the president's desk before he leaves office at the end of this year. There's some reason to believe that he might know something that we don't. And that is it for today's episode, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned today? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to address them. But besides that, if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will catch you on Wednesday for a midweek update. Have a great weekend, everybody.